What if I told you that most everything that you fear about aging, like the change in your appearance, the not being able to take care of yourself, losing your independence, financial insecurity, weight gain, loneliness, loss of purpose, almost all of these things are avoidable and not with luck, and it's not about genetics, but it is possible with habits. The truth is, most of us don't realize how much control we have over the way that we age and the way that we experience life. We blame our circumstances, our hormones, our genetics, the economy, and of course, those things play a role. But in reality, it's our habits, the way we choose to live our lives, that has the biggest impact on our next chapter. For every fear you have about the next chapter in your life, there's a plan that you could put in place to help mitigate your worst fears. In fact, if you don't love the way things are going right now, if you don't love your life today, if you want things to look differently, you just have to do things differently. In this episode, I'm going to share with you 7 things that I do very differently today after age 50 that I wish I had done earlier. I wish I had changed these habits, some of these habits, 10 years ago. And they really boil down to some really simple, small changes that can make a huge difference in your life. So if you're ready to look at your life and be honest about the things you don't love and the amount of control that you do have, if you're ready to make some changes and be disciplined about your habits, the next chapter of your life has the potential to be your absolute best. Okay, now before I get into those 7 life-changing habits, the things that I wish I had done sooner, I have a little tiny favor to ask of you in return. Could I ask you to do me a favor and just double check and make sure you're subscribed? Super simple. If you've already subscribed, can I ask you to just like this video? I mean, that's so easy. And people with good manners, they always say thank you. And liking this video is the equivalent of saying thank you. And if you let me know below that you've watched this video, then I can do the same and I can thank you. All right, let's get to it. My inspiration behind doing this episode came from a poll that I did with my Instagram followers, where I asked them, what are your greatest fears when you think about this next season, when you think about aging, when you think about yourself being older and the things that you fear, what comes to mind? And I was surprised how many, I mean, overwhelmingly, the most popular response was fear of not having enough money, just fear that they won't be able to do the things that they always dreamed of, fear that you won't be able to take care of yourself, fear that they wouldn't have the option of retiring or traveling or just spending more time with loved ones. So that was a big one. And quite a few others, including loneliness. That was a huge eye-opening response. Reading so many people are at a stage now where they realize, like, maybe they made a decision not to have children, but now that they're approaching 50 or in their 60s, and some of them even in their 70s said, I just don't know who's going to care for me or who's even going to care if I am sick. So many people said, like, my friends have changed. I've lost a lot of friends. I'm estranged from my family, or my family just isn't a part of my life that much anymore. And so if my partner were to die, or if we were to get divorced, or, for those who weren't married, many just said, I'm just lonely and I fear it's just going to get worse. I'm going to get lonelier. I fear that I'm going to die alone. So many of you said that you fear not being able to physically take care of yourself, not having the mobility or the strength or the cognitive awareness to be able to care for yourself. And of course, there were those whose greatest fear is just how every part of their body is going to look different, and that they're still going to feel young, but look old on the outside, or maybe they're just going to feel old. And as I read through the responses, I took a moment to think about how those were things I was fearful of, like maybe 10 years ago, some 5 years ago. And I asked myself, like, most of these things I might fear them a little bit, but I'm also pretty confident that I won't be in that position. And why do I feel differently today, even though I'm older? And the answer boils down to habits. I've had to change a lot of habits, and habits are hard to change because it means you got to like change yourself. Habits become so ingrained in who we are, and that's the beauty of a habit is it's something you don't even have to think about. You almost do it without even forcing yourself. You no longer need motivation or discipline. You just do it. So today I'm sharing with you the 7 habits that have made the biggest difference in my life today, and I know are going to have the most profound impact on my future and my next several seasons. And the first of which impacts my finances. For those of you who've been following me for a really long time, you probably know my history or have heard me share the story. My husband and I have been married now for over 30 years. And there was a period of time where we were really in major, with a capital M, financial disarray. We made a lot of bad choices. We knew how to make money, but we'd never learned or taught ourselves how to keep money or how to help our money compound and grow. And that combined with some really dumb decisions and a gambling addiction on my husband's part and me dealing with, I have to take ownership of some of my own addictions, like the addiction to work. I just was so buried in work and making money. But what's so weird about that is I never cared about keeping it. We had to learn how to do things differently. We had to recognize that this is something most people aren't taught, and we need to teach ourselves. I'm the first person on either side of my family to have gone to college, the first person to, as far as I know, make the kind of money that we've made. And, being first generation, I didn't learn anything about investing or managing money or compounding interest, any of those things from school or my parents, and neither had my husband. These are things we had to teach ourselves. We got in the habit of never putting our money in a savings account. And I know that might surprise some people, but here's what I mean by that. We're never putting our extra money into a savings account because it doesn't yield enough interest. If your money's in a savings account, you're losing money in essence. So we do put a very small amount into like a high yield cash management app like Wealthfront. But for the most part, any money that we don't need today is going to go into the stock market. And we become very disciplined investors. Because here's the truth. In today's market, if your money is not growing, it's shrinking. And after experiencing our own financial devastation, we really had to take a hard, cold look at like, okay, what does our future look like? We've been married for many years by that point and realized like, okay, what do we want our retirement years to look like? What do we want life to look like when we're in our 50s? We need to start getting really disciplined today about investing. And that meant you've got to learn. You've got to have financial literacy. You have to understand the rules and the best practices. And then you have to really be disciplined about that because if you're not accustomed to investing, even a very, very small amount, when you start to see the market dip, which it does all the time, it can freak you out and you think that you're losing money, but maybe you're losing money on paper, but it's the fact that we've been able to just stay disciplined even when we've had those major dips in the market and then buying more on those dips and then bouncing back for that is how we've been able to grow our financial portfolio wildly beyond our greatest efforts in the workforce. Like professionally, we've worked really hard, but our money is always working harder for us. And I just want you to know, no matter how old you are, even if you're in your 60s, it's time to start thinking about those things right now. But of course, whatever stage you're at, the older you are, the more aggressive you're going to have to be about these things. The second habit that I had to change was prioritizing my mobility. Now, I have a fitness program. I've had lots of fitness programs. You probably recognize me from, a late night infomercial. I've done Turbo Jam and Turbo Fire and Chalene Extreme and Payo. Now, Payo was a mix of Pilates and yoga, and it's very much a program designed to improve flexibility and mobility. That's most of the workouts are like 40 minutes long, some of them an hour. And I used to do an hour-long plyo workout several times a week. Well, when I decided to start focusing on my strength training, when I started to focus on walking and strength training, I just felt like there's just not enough hours in the day. I don't have the time to fit in a full hour-long plyo workout. And so for a period of time there, I got very stiff and quite immobile. My knees started hurting. My back was hurting. I was having ankle, foot, all the kinetic chain is connected. And when you're not mobile, other muscles have to compensate. You have less flexibility. And what I realized is, okay, I've got to make time for this. But I shifted my thought process to thinking that I had to do like a full hour and realized like I can fit mobility in between. And so the habit that I developed was training mobility while in between my sets lifting at the gym or lifting wherever I'm lifting. Anytime I'm going to take a rest between sets, because I already had the established habit of strength training, all I needed to do now was go, oh, okay, I'm going to attach another habit to an existing habit. And that's one of the best ways to turn something that is a behavior that you feel like you have to rely on motivation and discipline. If you can attach it to an already existing habit, it's so much easier. Now it's second nature for myself. At first, obviously, I would have to think about like, oh, okay, normally I would just be waiting for a minute or two for my legs to recover. Now I'm just going to get up and do a few mobility moves. So if I'm doing about a minute and a half of mobility between every single one of my sets, I'm getting in at least 30 minutes of mobility almost 5 times a week. And it has made a humongous difference in my knees and my back and my flexibility. I don't know. It makes me feel so much younger. Is that weird? Like when I'm doing these mobility exercises at the gym, I watch the young people and they'll be like, wow, you're really flexible. I'm like, I don't know if I'm flexible, but I'm definitely mobile. And the way that you stay mobile is by practicing mobility. Psst. Hey, I don't know if you noticed, but I got a new microphone. She's pink and she's white. What do we think about it? I would love to ask you a little favor. Could I ask you, if you haven't already, could you please subscribe to the channel? It's free and it would mean the world to me. That's my only ask. I appreciate you. I love you. Back to the show. The number 3 habit that I had to change was sitting. I had a habit of sitting on my laptop to do my work, sitting and looking at my phone, sitting in the car for long stretches of time, sitting and recording podcasts for hours, sitting and reviewing podcast footage for hours, doing Zoom calls, sitting. Like everything I did other than my workout was sitting. And what's so crazy is I considered myself a very active person because I was fit. I was fit because I was going to the gym, but I wasn't active. And if you're not active, well, then you're inactive. And the more inactive we are, the quicker we are to have every muscle and system of our body begin to break down. You just start to feel old. You know this is true. If you've ever been like stuck on a plane or stuck in a car for like 4 or 5 hours sitting, right? You get up and you're like, oh my God, oh wow, right? You feel old because the less we move, the older we get. So how did I change this habit? I started telling myself that every time I sat down, I tried to visualize my muscles, especially on my backside, getting flat and saggy. I tried to visualize myself dying sooner the longer I sat. The more time I spent inactive, I knew I was taking years off my life. So I started doing that. It was just like kind of a mental process, like correlating the act of sitting with a negative thought. And then certain habits that I already have, like scrolling on my phone, I stopped giving myself permission to scroll if I'm sitting or laying down, with the exception of just before I go to bed. I mean, like, I'm not going to play, like, please, please. Your girl still scrolls before she goes to bed. And I know we're not supposed to. I'm going to do a whole episode about sleep. But if I'm during the day, I don't allow myself to scroll social media, to look at email, to do anything sitting. I have to be standing if I'm on my phone. I bought a standing desk. I no longer am reviewing emails and looking at video footage or anything that I would normally be doing on my laptop. I now am doing it from a standing position. I'm either standing at my desk or I'm standing at my desk on a walking treadmill. Now, I'm not walking so fast that I can't concentrate. And trust me, this is so much easier than you think. I too thought I'm not coordinated enough. I'm going to fall off. It's going to make me dizzy. I'm not going to be able to type fast. None of that is true. You just start very slow and you work yourself up to a decent clip. It's not a workout or anything. It's just keeping your body moving. It's keeping your blood flowing, which helps you with cognition. It helps you to focus. It helps you to stay in the zone. The fourth life-changing habit that I've established is testing my hormones on a regular basis. For me, that's every 6 months or when I start experiencing like weird symptoms. So sometimes I don't even wait 6 months. Like sometimes I'm like something is going on and I want to get to the bottom of it. Now, this is new because I have been doing hormone replacement therapy now for almost 10 years. So before menopause. And the first doctor that I work with basically said, you don't have to ever test, just go off of your symptoms. And, and once you're in menopause, then we can test maybe once a year, but it's an unnecessary expense, which may be true for many of you. For me, it's something that I can afford and it's something I prioritize spending my money on. Like I used to spend my money on shoes and purses and like things that would stay in my closet. In fact, the other day, my daughter was like, Mom, do you have a picture of your shoes from when I was growing up? I'm like, yes, I do. So I'm going to show you this picture. It is crazy. I collected shoes, but like, I don't have those shoes now. I've sold most of them and I love the Real Real. Oh my gosh. Do you guys use the Real Real? Shout out to the Real Real. And a lot of them I've donated, but I'm just like, why do I need all these things? For me, I would rather enjoy travel. I would rather enjoy spoiling other people. And I like spending my money on things that are going to help me to age powerfully. I like spending my money on adventures with my friends. And so I like spending my money on testing my hormones every 6 months. By doing that, I'm able to keep my levels at in optimal ranges. So there's hormone replacement. And what I like to think of it for me, is like I'm not doing a surplus of what I ever had. I'm just trying to maintain that range that I was once at that helped me to have optimal health. And if you understand how protective hormones are of your brain health, your heart health, your bone health, the way that you sleep, the way that you feel each day, your mood, your energy, your muscle development, hormones are what allow us to age powerfully. And so for me, I want to monitor them. If I wasn't testing them on a regular basis, I would not have known that I was living in black mold.
Your ochratoxin A, went up. It went up substantially. It went up like sixfold. Your aflatoxin doubled. Your trichothecene, which is the absolute worst of them, it's still 5 times normal.
Because I test on a regular basis, I think a lot of women were just not good at identifying our own symptoms, And so like I was gaslighting myself. My doctor was like, have you noticed that you're fatigued and tired? I'm like, I not any more so than normal. It's like, I just think these changes come on so slowly that we don't recognize that we don't feel as good as we once did. Anyways, so I get my hormones tested and my doctor's like, something's going on. Like you've been steady for a couple years now and you've just like all of your levels have dropped off a cliff. And when I reflected on how I had been feeling the past like 3 months before testing, I had been quite emotional. Everything was stressing me out. I was incredibly tired. I felt like I was going to cry all the time. I had these massive headaches and I just wasn't myself, but it's so weird. I just completely gaslit myself and was like, oh, well, it's because you weren't sleeping well. And, of course you're tired because you weren't sleeping well. And of course you've gained weight because you weren't sleeping well and you're tired. You know what I mean? But then when I looked at my hormones, I'm like, okay, something else is going on here. And that's when we knew to do testing for mold. So for me, I just think it's really important if you've got the funds to be able to work with a doctor. Because a lot of times the best hormone doctors are concierge, like they're shifting to that type of care where you pay out of pocket. They're not inside the insurance network. If you do have a great doctor who accepts insurance, some insurance plans don't allow you to test very often. So, everybody's different. I will say, if you need a very affordable solution, and if you watched or listened to any of my episodes, you know how critically important I think this is, no matter how old you are. I don't care if you're 75 or 35, once those hormones begin to decline, it's really important that we stay on top of it. Take a look at the latest research. And so don't let money be a deterrent. If you have insurance and you need a provider that accepts insurance, the company that I always rave about is called MIDI Health. I heard about them on another podcast. I looked into them. I started doing my own research and treating with them just to see, like, what do I think? They accept insurance. They're in all 50 states. It's a telehealth company that was designed by women for women specifically for this, because the founder, Joanna, was someone who was going through menopause, and she's like, wait, why does my doctor not know anything about this? Why is it so hard for me to get HRT? Or at least get the answers. Like, if nothing else, like, I'm not saying that every single woman has to, like, just take my advice. I want you to do your own research. But part of doing that research is talking to a clinician who's up to date on the latest science and research, and asking them to see it, and asking if you're a candidate, and asking for the pros and cons, and literally having a dialogue, a conversation with a clinician nowadays is kind of rare. Like, they come in, they fly in, they fly out, right? But that's another reason why I always recommend MIDI Health, because their clinicians will actually listen to you. So if you're wondering what type of appointment to ask for, I'll put the QR code up on the screen. It's chalene.com/MIDI, MIDI. So if you're watching on YouTube, you see that little QR code. You can either take a screenshot if you're watching from your smartphone, or if you're watching me on the big screen. Oh my gosh, please don't zoom in on the wrinkles. But if you're watching me on the big screen, you can take a picture of the big screen with your phone, and then you can open up your camera roll and just tap on that QR code. And when you book your appointment, book an age well appointment, because then they'll go over, like, all the things: your body fat, your bone density, HRT, anything that's on your brain about aging well. I highly recommend MIDI Health. Now, if you already have a great clinician and locally that you want to continue working with, just make sure you're up to date. And on a regular basis, if you check with your insurance, make sure it's covered, or if it's something you're willing to prioritize paying out of pocket, I just think it's one of the most important ways to make sure that you've got that mobility and the strength and the cognition. Like, our hormones support our brain health, all these things. So when your fears are like you not being able to care for yourself physically, a lot of that is making sure that you're doing the things right now that give you optimal strength and longevity. The fifth habit that I've adopted is going to AI, specifically ChatGPT or Perplexity, about 50 times a day. Listen, I don't want to be behind the eight ball. I don't want to be one of those people that, yeah, you know who I'm talking about, like people who they just have their head in the sand, and they have no idea what's going on in the world. And they have no idea all the changes that are happening. They have no idea, because it seems overwhelming and it seems scary. And they think, well, because I don't know, I'm just going to stay in my little bubble. And I'm here to tell you, it's not going anywhere. It's moving faster than you can possibly imagine. And you don't have to worry about the fact that you haven't been up to date with AI. It updates automatically. So when you download an app like ChatGPT, which is what I would recommend you start with if you haven't already, just start using it on a regular basis. If you can afford the paid version, get the freaking paid version, because it is miles and miles better than the free version. Watch a simple video that came out in this month on how to use ChatGPT 2025, whatever month you're watching this in, and just learn the basics and start using it on a regular basis. Once I started doing this, and I'm going to show you my screensaver. So literally, I have trained myself that anytime the thought or the word how or what pops in my head, I open up ChatGPT. And of course, you can tell me all the ways that it's wrong and it's got misinformation. Dude, I get that. It's still smarter than any human that's alive today. The IQ of ChatGPT is still higher than anyone you or I know. So I'm still light years beyond my own intelligence. And I don't let questions linger anymore. I don't, if I lose the instructions on something I bought and I need to put it together, I don't wonder like, oh no, where I take a picture of it and ask ChatGPT to give me the instructions. If there's anything at all I'm curious about, if I'm not sure how to have a conversation with someone, if I'm not sure what somebody meant by something, if I have any questions about technology, my future, planning, a supplement. I mean, there's millions of ways that I use ChatGPT, and it has dramatically saved me so much time in my business. And it's made me have such confidence about what's happening next and feeling like I'm in the know. Nothing can make you feel calmer and more confident than knowledge, right? I mean, think about the last time that you were anxious and unsure about something in the future. It was because you didn't have information. You didn't know. So get yourself in the habit of every single time the words what, how, where, when, anything like that pops into your head, don't ask it out loud. Don't let it ruminate in your head. Don't ask it of your partner. Ask it of ChatGPT. And then of course you can ask I mean, like, I'm not telling you to have isolate and give up all of your very important relationships and conversations and stop calling the people you love to talk to and get advice from. But it's nice to have a second opinion, and the more you use ChatGPT, the more comfortable you'll get with it and the more convenient you will find it to be. And listen, AI isn't going anywhere. It is the way of the future. We can't put it back in the box. So we need to embrace it, because the more good quality, ethical people who are involved and understand AI, the less likely we are to have evil people destroy the world with AI. I mean, there's some theories out there. If you're watching this on YouTube, I should tell you, I have an audio podcast. So this video will end up being on that audio podcast. But there's some episodes I do that aren't video, so they're just on audio. And I did one that like blew people's minds who were like newer users of ChatGPT, or like ChatGPT or AI light users, or even people who are brand new and never used ChatGPT. And I just listed off bam, 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 like all the different ways that I use it, and blew people's minds. And I'm going to link that one below this episode. So wherever you're listening or watching this, if you're someone who's like, yeah, I guess I probably am not using as much as I could, you're going to freaking love this. I get messages to this day from people who are like, girl, you changed my life. Like, ChatGPT is my best friend. I've been able to start a business. I've been able to organize all my supplements. I've been able to save money. Like, this is a great episode. If you feel like there's probably more you could be doing with AI, you'll love this. The sixth habit that I changed relates to friendships and community and feeling supported, because as we hit midlife, especially as women, I mean, we've been taking care of everybody and everything. When we're younger, I think it's not something we even think about. You have friends they graduated from college with or high school, and you maintain those friendships. And then, some of those wane, but that's okay, because you've got new friends that are parents of kids who play on your son's baseball team. And then there's, these other parents that you know from the neighborhood, or there's, people that you know because you work together with them. But COVID, your kids getting older, you changing where you live, all these things mean as we get older, this friend group gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then I think what happens is we get busier and busier, right? Like, you're at the height of your career or whatever it is you're doing. And now you're also taking care of your adult parents, and maybe your adult children, and maybe your adult children's children. And you're just so busy, and there's no time to make new friends. And your older existing, your old friend group, like, they're so busy that they don't have time to get together. And so the next thing you know, you're like, I guess I don't need friends. And then you start telling yourself like, yeah, you know what? I don't really feel like getting a new outfit on and hanging out with people. Sounds like a lot of work anyways. So maybe I don't need friends. But when push comes to shove and I ask you what you're worried about in your much older age, overwhelmingly people said finances and loneliness. And loneliness happens when we don't feel like we're supported. And that doesn't necessarily mean blood family. Your family can be your closest friends. And yes, you can make meaningful, solid relationships after 40, after 50, after 60, in your 70s. But it does take effort, and it takes making the time for them. And it takes not making it personal when people don't prioritize it. So the biggest change that I've made is I have always been like the organizer of my girls group, and everyone knows their role. Like there's the person who you invite because they're just going to make everybody laugh. And then there's the person you invite who is going to clean up the kitchen and cook for everybody. And then there's the person you invite who is the life of the party. And then there's the person who does all the organizing. And that would be me. And I had this big group of like 10 girls. And we would, there's a stage of our lives when everyone always was available. And we got together once a year, this big group of us. And we had so much fun. And we always did physical challenges, like we would go snowboarding, or we would go dancing, or we would take, I don't know, take different lessons. We'd learn how to do shuffling. We'd do all kinds of fun, crazy things, always something physical. And it was so meaningful. And I loved it. And you'd come back feeling just revitalized. But then there's a period of time where on our group thread, I'd be like, hey, what about this date and this date? And, like 4 or 5 of the girls wouldn't be available. And then I'd try again a couple months later. And then again, 3 or 4 people weren't available. And so we went at least 4 years, almost 5 years, without all of us getting together because we couldn't make all of our calendars coordinate at the same time. And a couple years ago, I just decided, just because all of them aren't available doesn't mean that we should skip this. So I decided that even if everyone isn't available, I'm planning the get together. And if that means only 3 out of the 10 show up, then only 3 out of the 10 show up. If that means 5 out of the 10, then 5 out of the 10. If that means some of the original girls just, for whatever reason, it's just not a priority to them, I can't take it personal. I'm still going to invite them every year. I still hope and pray that they're going to show up to one of these events. But in the meantime, I am going to prioritize what I know based on the longest running Harvard study on longevity shows is the most important, most critical factor to our health as we age. It's not your supplements. It's not strength training. It's not walking 10,000 steps. It's your friendships, your support, your community. And if you're lucky enough to have community from your family, like you've got sisters and brothers and they're there for you and they show up and you pour into each other and you feel enriched and happy, fantastic. But most people, that's pretty uncommon. Family is sometimes our friends. And I need women in my life. I know what that does for me. And I value it. And seeing the science behind this makes it that much more powerful. So anytime I'm spending time with my girls, it might not be, the 10 or 12 girls originally, but even just 2 or 3, even just one close friend, prioritizing that time is an investment in my future. It's an investment in my community. I'm telling that woman, I love you and I support you. And if you need me, you better call me first. And I know I can do the same for you. You get in a pinch, girl, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to help you financially. I'm going to help you physically. I'm going to be there for you in the end of your life. And those kinds of friendships require time. They require devotion, and you deserve them. So stop telling yourself these stories that like, oh, I can't find women like that. If you keep saying that, that will be true. If you're not prioritizing making that, because you're not going to find that time, you have to make that time. It's one of the reasons why I put on the camp once a year, Camp Be More. And we talk about these things. We talk about how do we put together a plan to have the financial future that we want. We talk about hormones, we talk about friendships, we talk about sex, we talk about, all the things that you actually have a lot of control over when it comes to aging. So if you want to live your best possible life, I would love for you to come to Camp Be More. If you're watching this episode or listening to this episode, be sure to check our show notes and see if there's still time for you to get registered. This upcoming year, the event is March 18th and 19th in Las Vegas, Nevada. And that is 2026. Oh my gosh, isn't that crazy to think about? The event actually starts the day before. So if you want to come in early for a nice little icebreaker, my mom and I are going to do like a little fun like movement session. My mom got Zumba certified at age 70. Talk about an inspiration. Actually, I think she was age 73 when she got Zumba certified. Anyways, I would love to have you join us. If not this year, a future year, put it on your calendar as something that you're going to do for yourself, because you do need support. You do need women in your life. And this is a wonderful way to meet them. So here's my assignment for you right now. I want you to drop below this episode. Tell me who came to mind that you're like, I know I need to get together with this person, and I'm going to be the person to reach out and say like, hey, let's get a lunch date, or let's plan a girls' day or a spa day, or let's plan a weekend away. Let me know who that is, and that's how you're going to hold yourself accountable, because you're going to tell me their name or their names and say, I'm going to reach out and get something on the books. The seventh habit that I've changed, and this was a really hard one, took a little adjusting, is at least once a quarter, my husband and I spend a couple of days apart. Now, that might sound like really weird if you're like, huh? What? So I don't know what your relationship is with your significant other, or if you have one, if that's important to you. But for me, I just knew we needed to experience time apart. We do everything together. We work together. We live together. We work out together, like all the things. We eat together because we run our businesses together. Like, everything is together. And that's a beautiful thing. But relationships are, especially romantic relationships, are so much more exciting when there's a little bit of tension, unknown, independence. And independence creates this attraction. You're not attracted to someone if you're together all the time. Like, that space between you creates desire. It creates, I don't know, a lot of things. And we weren't used to doing that. So at first, the first couple of times we did it was weird. We would like argue on the phone. I'm like, we don't even argue in person. Like, why are we arguing? It was because we both were kind of out of sorts. If I'm being honest, I don't know that either of us knew how to be without the other person. And so doing this has made the getting back together time so yummy. I'll keep it PG, but it's very fun. And I like seeing that I'm okay by myself, because let's face it, at some point that's going to happen to one of us. I like knowing that I can take care of myself, not as well as he takes care of me, but I just, there's certain things I really just enjoy doing and being by myself, and knowing that he can do the same. It's good for us. So that's something that we never did before. And I think it has really made our relationship even better. And again, this is one of those habits, like proving to myself that I've got that independence and that I can take care of myself, and I can actually have a lot of fun and entertain myself. That's something I need to know that I can do that. So if you're someone who has your kids at home, maybe it's not a significant other, maybe it's your children, or maybe it's work. This last habit is about knowing that you aren't just one singular identity. You're not just an accountant. You're not just team mom. You're not just a wife. You're not just fill in the blank. You're a lot of different things. And you have to push yourself outside your comfort zone to experience that sometimes. Habits have the power to change your health, your finances, your mood, your body, your environment, your relationships. And habits are the key to helping you age powerfully. I love you. I mean it. And I'll talk to you soon.